Hi, welcome back to my channel. Today we're going to make a loaf of artisan bread, and this bread is probably the easiest loaf of bread that you can make, and it's absolutely delicious. So what we're going to do, we're going to get started. We need 3 1/3 cups of bread flour, not all-purpose bread flour. So we get that in the mixing bowl. We're going to add 2 teaspoons of salt. I'm using sea salt. You can use kosher. We're also going to add 1/2 teaspoon of yeast. I'm using bread machine yeast is what I use for this. And then we're going to add 1 1/2 cups of room temperature water. But first we're going to mix our yeast, our salt, and our flour good. This is a loaf of bread that you don't have to slave over. It actually takes 2 days to make. Because what we're going to do now is mix the dough. And it's going to be a shaggy dough. That means it's going to be wet. So we're going to mix the dough thoroughly, and then we're going to put a lid on it and let it set on your kitchen counter overnight. You can let it set 18 hours. And then the next day, we just shape it into a loaf and we have to bake it. So it's fairly easy. And it's great because if you know you're having company tomorrow and you want to make a nice loaf of bread the day before, you can mix it, and then the day of, you can bake it and have a nice fresh loaf of artisan bread. So now that we're all mixed here, we're going to add our water. 1.5 cups right in the bowl. And I'm going to show you a picture of this after we mix it. But you want to get all that flour incorporated into the water. And you want to mix it good. It can be a little stiff to start. Just keep mixing it. Scrape down the edges of the bowl as you go. Make sure you get everything off the bottom. Turn the dough over. Get all that flour in there. Okay. Now, I'm going to show you what this looks like. There. I'll take a picture. Once you get it to this point, you want to cover it. If you don't have a bowl with a lid, use saran wrap or aluminum foil. So this is going to sit, and tomorrow when we get ready to bake, it should have risen some in bulk, and it's going to smell fermented. It actually smells really good, kind of like a sourdough type of smell. But that's all you have to do today. So I'm going to set this on the counter, and then when it's done, I'll show you how we shape it into a loaf and how we bake it. So stick with me, and I'll be back when we're ready to bake. Okay, Our dough has been sitting overnight. I'll give you a quick look at it. You can see it's doubled in bulk. And you can also see that it's very shaggy, it's very wet. So what we want to do, I'm going to flour the counter a bit. I'm going to take it out. And when you do this with a shaggy dough, it helps to have wet fingers. There we go. So now what we want to do is I'm going to take it, I'm going to pull it up like this and fold it. Turn it, pull it up and fold it. Turn it, pull it up, fold it, turn it, pull it up, and fold it. So now I have a bowl sprayed. I'm going to put our dough in the bowl. And we're going to cover it. Let it rest about 20 minutes. After 20 minutes, we're going to repeat the same procedure. We're going to pull it out and we're going to fold it again. So we'll give it a rest and we'll come back and do it again. Our dough's had a rest. I'm going to fold it over on itself again. Back in the bowl. We'll give it another 20-minute rest. All right, our bread's had another rest. We're going to flour our surface. We're going to take a Bannington, put some flour in it. Want to cover it good. Dump our bread out. shape it into a nice ball. I'm going to need some more flour. Give it a good coating of flour. There we go. Now we're going to put it into our banneton. Make sure it's sealed good everywhere. And now we're going to give it an hour or two to proof to rise. We're going to cover it up, keep it in a warm spot, and then after it's risen, we'll bake it. So we're doing good. So I'll catch back up with you in a bit, and we'll finish our bread. All right, our bread has risen. We're going to prepare our Dutch oven for baking. What we want to do is put parchment paper in the bottom, and these are great. These are, you get them at Kroger, they're cut sheets. I use them all the time. Perfect size for a cookie sheet. So we want to put parchment paper in the bottom. Just like that. Put the lid on. Now, this is where you have to be careful, because the Dutch oven is going to go in the oven at 450 degrees for about 20 minutes. We need this to be really hot. So you're going to have to be very careful that you don't burn yourself on it. Get it in the oven, get it hot. Then once we get it hot, we'll bring it out, shape our bread, put it in the Dutch oven, put the lid on, and we'll bake it. So as soon as we get the oven temperature up to 450 degrees, we'll put it in there about 20 minutes. And then we'll put our bread in it. So I'll get back with you as soon as I can. All right, our Dutch oven is up to temperature. Our bread is risen, so looks good. I'm gonna dump it out. I'm going to shape it into a good loaf. You want to create some surface tension by pulling the dough under it. That's looking pretty good. So now I'm kind of at a disadvantage because I don't have anybody to film for me, and I have to do it stationary like this. I'm going to bring the Dutch oven out onto the stove, put our loaf of bread in it. Then I'm going to score it with a single edge razor blade. My bread lane broke, so I'll use a razor blade. I'm just going to give it a slice across the top. Then we're going to put the lid on it, put it in the oven, and we'll bake it at 450 for about 20 minutes, and then we'll remove the lid and bake it until it's finished. So I'm going to go ahead and bring the Dutch oven out and drop the bread in it. So you have to be careful not to burn yourself. I think I can show you what it looks like once I get it in there. I'll score it. Now I'm gonna grab the camera and show you what it looks like while it's in there. Alright guys, our bread's in the Dutch oven, at 450 degrees with the lid on. We'll let it go 20 minutes and then we're gonna pull the lid off. The whole idea of cooking it in a Dutch oven is for steam. Commercial bread ovens have steam injectors, but baked in a Dutch oven like that, the steam from the water from the bread in the Dutch oven will help it rise and get a good crispy crust is what we want. So we'll let it go 20 minutes, take the lid off. I'll show you what it looks like after 20 minutes, and then we'll continue cooking it, and I'll cook it till internal temperature about 200 degrees. So hang with me, and we'll be back when we have a loaf of bread that's just about cooked. All right, so we're gonna finish up this video on baking our artisan bread. And this is actually the hardest part of the video. The hardest part of baking bread, the hardest part that I hate to deal with, and that's waiting for the bread to cool before I can slice it and put some peanut butter on it or some butter. So, and I think you'll agree with me on that. So I'm gonna go and grab the bread out of the oven, put it on the cooling rack, and we have to wait till it cools down before we can slice it. And that's the hardest part. So give me just a second to grab our bread. I think it's gonna look pretty good. It usually does. So give me a second, I'll grab the bread, pull it out of the oven, and we'll have a peek. All right, guys, there it is. There's a loaf of artisan bread, and I'm dying to slice into it. And I'm gonna try to get it up close to where you can see it, and I'll also take a picture of it for you. So now is the hard part. We have to wait for it to cool and slice it. But we'll be doing that. So hang in there. And when I come back, we'll be slicing some bread.